The emergency room doors burst open as Jae-hyun J. Park strode through Miami General Hospital, his Armani suit incongruous among the medical chaos. Blood stained his white shirt, not his own, and his dark eyes scanned desperately for the trauma bay. His lieutenant had been shot, and Jay's world of power and control meant nothing here. "Sir, you can't," a security guard began. But one look at Jay's face silenced him. That's when he saw her. Kira Thompson moved with practiced efficiency between patients, her scrubs pristine despite the Christmas Eve mayhem. Her natural curls were pulled back, revealing the graceful neck he'd once kissed 1,000 times. She hadn't seen him yet. Focused entirely on saving lives, the same compassion that had made him fall in love with her 5 years ago. And then Jay's world tilted. 3 small faces peered around the nurse's station, identical boys with his own dark eyes and sharp jawline, unmistakably Korean features blended beautifully with their mother's heritage. They couldn't be more than 4 years old. His legs nearly gave out. The math was simple, devastating. She'd been pregnant when she left him, when she disappeared without a word, taking his heart and apparently his children with her. "Mommy," one of the boys called out, and Kira's head snapped up. Her eyes met Jay's across the crowded ER, and the color drained from her face. For the first time in 5 years, the most powerful man in Miami felt completely, utterly powerless. "Welcome to Korean Mafia lovers. Hey there, please let us know where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. Your support is essential for us to continue bringing you these emotional stories." The fluorescent lights of Miami General Hospital cast harsh shadows across the emergency room as Kira Thompson checked her watch. 11:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. 3 more hours until her shift ended, 3 more hours until she could go home to her boys. The thought of Ethan, Mason, and Lucas waiting for her with their grandmother brought a tired smile to her lips. "Kira, incoming trauma in Bay 3, Dr. Martinez called out, snapping her back to reality. "GSW to the chest, ETA 2 minutes. She nodded, already moving toward the trauma bay. 5 years as a night shift nurse had taught her to compartmentalize. Work was work, home was home, and never the two should meet. It was the only way she could survive working in one of Miami's busiest hospitals, while raising 3 4-year-old boys alone. The ambulance sirens grew louder, and Kira prepped the bay with mechanical precision. IV lines, monitors, crash cart, everything ready for whatever came through those doors. She'd seen it all. Gang violence, domestic disputes, drug overdoses. Miami's underbelly revealed itself in her ER every night. What she hadn't expected was for her past to walk through those doors. The paramedics burst in first, wheeling a man in an expensive suit who was clutching his chest and barking orders in Korean. Behind them, moving with the lethal grace she remembered all too well, came Jae-hyun Park. Kira's hands froze on the IV bag. 5 years melted away in an instant. He looked exactly the same, sharp jawline, intense dark eyes, perfectly styled black hair. The same man who had whispered promises in the dark, who had made her believe in forever. The same man whose world had nearly destroyed her. Jay's eyes swept the trauma bay, clearly assessing threats and exits, old habits from a life she'd tried to forget. When his gaze landed on her, she watched recognition flicker across his features, followed immediately by something that looked like pain. "Ma'am, we need to get him stabilized," Dr. Martinez said, pushing past her toward the patient. Kira forced herself to move, to be professional. The injured man was conscious but losing blood fast. As she worked to establish an IV line, she could feel Jay's presence like electricity in the air. He stood against the wall, silent but commanding, his very stillness somehow more intimidating than any threat. "What happened?" Dr. Martinez asked as they worked. "Drive-by shooting," one of the paramedics reported. "Bullet missed the heart by inches." Kira's hands remained steady as she drew blood for typing, but her mind raced. This was Jay's world, the world she'd fled from when she discovered she was pregnant, the world of violence and danger that she'd sworn her children would never know. "He's stable for now," Dr. Martinez announced after 20 minutes of intense work. "We need to get him to surgery." As the team wheeled the patient toward the elevator, Jay stepped forward. For a moment, Kira thought he might follow his man upstairs. Instead, he turned to her. "Kira." Her name on his lips was barely a whisper, but it hit her like a physical blow. "I'm working," she said, not trusting herself to look at him directly. She began cleaning up the trauma bay, needing something to do with her hands. "I know, I can see that." His voice was different somehow, rougher, more careful. You look good." She finally met his eyes, and the intensity there nearly undid her. "What are you doing here, Jay?" "My lieutenant was shot. I had to—" He stopped, running a hand through his hair in a gesture she remembered. "I never expected to see you here." "Miami's a big city," she said, disposing of used supplies with perhaps more force than necessary. "But not big enough, apparently." The silence stretched between them, heavy with 5 years of unspoken words. Kira could hear the familiar sounds of the ER around them. Monitors beeping, conversations in Spanish and English, the constant hum of activity that had become her world. "Kira, I need to ask you—" "Mommy!" The voice cut through the tension like a knife. Kira's blood turned to ice as she saw 3 small figures running toward the nurse's station. Her mother-in-law, Mrs. Chen, hurried behind them, looking apologetic. "I'm so sorry," Mrs. Chen called out in accented English. "They woke up asking for you. And when I told them we were bringing your dinner, they insisted on coming inside." Ethan reached her first, his dark eyes bright with excitement. "Mommy, we made you cookies. Well, Grandma Chen helped, but we did the decorating." Mason and Lucas flanked their brother, identical faces beaming up at her. All 3 boys had inherited their father's sharp features and dark eyes, though their skin was a beautiful blend of both parents' heritage. Their black hair stuck up at odd angles despite Mrs. Chen's obvious attempts to tame it. Kira's heart hammered as she knelt to their level, acutely aware of Jay's presence behind her. "Boys, you know you're not supposed to be in the hospital. It's not safe." "But it's Christmas Eve," Lucas protested. "And you've been working forever." "We wanted to make sure you ate," Mason added, holding up a container of homemade cookies. Kira pulled them close, breathing in their familiar scent of baby shampoo and the slight sweetness that seemed to cling to all children. Over their heads, she could see Jay's reflection in the glass partition. He stood frozen, his face a mask of shock and something that looked like devastation. The math was simple enough. The boys were 4 years old. She'd left Jay 5 years ago. Any fool could figure it out. "Mommy, who's that man?" Ethan asked, following her gaze. "He looks sad." Kira's throat closed. She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. 5 years of carefully constructed walls were crumbling around her. Jay stepped forward slowly, as if approaching wild animals. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse. They're mine, aren't they?" Mrs. Chen gasped, finally understanding the situation. The boys looked between the adults, sensing the tension, but not understanding it. "Kira," Jay said again, and this time her name sounded broken. "They're my sons." It wasn't a question. The resemblance was too strong, too obvious. 3 little versions of Jae-hyun Park stared up at their mother, waiting for an explanation that would change everything. "Boys," Kira managed, her voice barely steady, "go with Grandma Chen to the cafeteria. I'll be there in a few minutes." "But, Mommy—" "Now," she said more firmly, and something in her tone made them obey. Mrs. Chen gathered them up, shooting worried glances over her shoulder as she led them away. When they were alone again, Jay moved closer. 5 years, he said, his voice raw. 5 years, Kira. You've been raising my children for 5 years and I never knew they existed. You made your choice, she whispered, finally meeting his eyes. You chose that life over us. I never chose anything over you. You left. You disappeared without a word, without giving me a chance to what? To promise you'd change? To swear you'd leave the family business? Her voice rose slightly, then dropped back to a whisper. We both know how that would have ended. Jay's jaw clenched, and she could see him fighting for control. You should have told me. Whatever you thought of me, whatever you believed I was capable of, I had a right to know about my children. And they had a right to safety, to a normal life. Look around, Kira, he said, gesturing to the ER. You work nights in one of the most dangerous hospitals in Miami. You think this is safer than anything I could have provided? The accusation hit home, and Kira felt tears prick her eyes. At least here, the danger isn't sleeping in my bed. The words hung between them like a physical blow. Jay's face went white, and for a moment, she saw past the powerful facade to the man she'd once loved, the one who'd held her during thunderstorms and made her laugh until her sides ached. "I need to get back to work," she said, turning away. "This isn't over," Jay called after her. "They're my sons, Kira. I won't walk away from them." She paused at the trauma bay entrance, not looking back. "And I won't let you destroy their lives the way you destroyed ours." As she walked away, Kira could feel his eyes on her back. In the distance, she could hear her boys' laughter echoing from the cafeteria, blissfully unaware that their world was about to change forever. The next morning, Christmas Day, Kira stood in her small kitchen, making pancakes for 3 hungry boys who were bouncing off the walls with excitement. The modest apartment in Little Havana was a far cry from the luxury she'd once known, but it was theirs, safe, warm, and filled with love. "Mommy, can we open presents now?" Mason asked for the 10th time, tugging on her scrubs. She'd gotten home at 3 a.m. and had barely slept, but Christmas waited for no one. "After breakfast," she said, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. "You know the rules." Ethan and Lucas joined their brother in a chorus of groans, but they dutifully climbed onto their chairs at the small dining table. Kira had saved for months to buy them each a small gift, nothing extravagant, but enough to make Christmas special. The knock at her door came just as she was serving the pancakes. Kira froze, spatula in hand. She wasn't expecting anyone, and Mrs. Chen was visiting her own family today. Through the peephole, she saw a delivery man holding an enormous arrangement of presents wrapped in gold and silver. "Delivery for Thompson residence," the man said when she cracked the door open. "I didn't order anything." "Says here it's from." He checked his clipboard. "J. Park. Merry Christmas, ma'am." Kira's heart sank as the man wheeled in box after box. Expensive electronics, designer clothes in perfect sizes, toys that cost more than she made in a month. The boy's eyes grew wide as saucers. "Mummy, who sent all this?" Lucas asked, reaching for a box that was clearly a gaming system. Before she could answer, another knock came. This time she knew who it would be. Jay stood in her doorway, holding a small wrapped box, looking oddly nervous. He'd traded his expensive suit for dark jeans and a simple black sweater, but he still looked completely out of place in her modest hallway. "Can I come in?" he asked quietly. "Boys, go brush your teeth," Kira said without taking her eyes off Jay. "But the present, now." They scrambled toward the bathroom, whispering excitedly about the mysterious gifts. When they were gone, Kira stepped aside to let Jay enter. He moved carefully through her small living space, taking in the second-hand furniture, the photos of the boys covering every surface, the small Christmas tree decorated with handmade ornaments. His expression was unreadable. "You can't just show up here," Kira said, closing the door. "You can't buy them with expensive gifts." "I'm not trying to buy them." Jay set the small box on her coffee table. I don't know what I'm trying to do." "You're trying to control the situation. It's what you do." He turned to face her, and she was surprised to see vulnerability in his dark eyes. "I spent all night thinking about them, about you, about the last 5 years." He ran a hand through his hair. "I have 3 sons, Kira. 3 sons who don't know I exist. And whose fault is that?" "Yours," he said quietly, and the simple honesty of it hit her like a slap. "You made the choice to keep them from me. I understand why. I even understand that you thought it was the right choice. But it was still your choice." Kira sank onto her couch, suddenly exhausted. "You don't understand anything. You have no idea what it was like being pregnant and alone, wondering if you'd come home every night. If our children would grow up without a father because he got himself killed playing gangster." "I'm not playing anything," Jay said, his voice hardening. "This is my life, my family's legacy. And that's exactly why I left." The bathroom door opened, and 3 small heads peeked out. "Are we in trouble?" Ethan asked hesitantly. "No, baby," Kira said, forcing a smile. "Come here." They approached cautiously, clearly sensing the tension between the adults. Jay knelt down to their level, and Kira's heart clenched at how natural the movement seemed. "Boys," she said carefully, This is your father." The silence that followed was deafening. 3 pairs of dark eyes, so like their father's, stared at Jay with curiosity and confusion. "Our daddy?" Mason asked finally. "But you said our daddy had to go away before we were born." "I did have to go away," Jay said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "But I'm here now if you want me to be." Lucas, always the boldest, stepped closer. Why did you go away? Jay looked at Kira helplessly. How did you explain organized crime to a 4-year-old? Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Kira said carefully, and sometimes they have to figure out how to fix them. Are you going to stay now? Ethan asked, and the hope in his voice nearly broke Kira's heart. I'd like to, Jay said, glancing at Kira, if your mother says it's okay. 3 pairs of eyes turned to her expectantly. Kira felt trapped between her protective instincts and the undeniable longing she saw in her sons' faces. They'd always asked about their father, and she'd always deflected with vague answers. We'll see, she said finally. Jay's phone buzzed, and his expression immediately shifted. Kira recognized that look. Business was calling. I have to take this, he said, stepping toward the window. His voice dropped to rapid Korean as he answered. The boys watched him with fascination. Mommy, what language is that? Mason whispered. Korean, she said. Your father is Korean. Are we Korean too? Lucas asked. You're half Korean, you see, Kira explained, and half black, like Mommy. Jay finished his call and turned back to them, but Kira could see the tension in his shoulders. Whatever the call had been about, it wasn't good. I have to go, he said reluctantly, but I'd like to see you again. All of you. Can we open the presents first? Ethan asked hopefully. Jay smiled, the first genuine smile Kira had seen from him, and her heart did a traitorous flutter. Of course. The next hour was chaos as the boys tore through wrapping paper, exclaiming over each expensive gift. Jay watched them with an expression of wonder and pain, as if he couldn't quite believe they were real. When his phone buzzed again, Kira saw him check it and frown. Go, she said quietly. Handle whatever crisis needs handling. Kira, just go, Jay. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You can't just turn off being who you are. He looked like he wanted to argue, but another urgent buzz from his phone decided for him. I'll call you, he said. No, Kira said firmly. If you want to be part of their lives, it has to be on my terms. Safe places, normal activities, no business, no danger. Jay's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Whatever you want. After he left, the boys peppered her with questions she couldn't answer. Yes, that was their father. No, she didn't know when they'd see him again. Yes, he seemed nice. But as she watched them play with toys that cost more than her monthly salary, Kira couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just opened a door she might not be able to close again. That evening, as she tucked them into bed, Lucas asked sleepily, Mommy, is Daddy going to live with us now? I don't know, baby, she said honestly. Would you like that? Yeah, he said without hesitation. He has the same eyes as us. As Kira turned off the lights, she wondered if shared genetics would be enough to bridge 5 years of absence and a lifetime of different worlds. 3 days after Christmas, Kira was restocking supplies in the ER when Dr. Martinez approached her with a concerned expression. Kira, there's someone here to see you. Says it's about your children. Her blood turned cold. She followed him to the family consultation room, where a woman in an expensive suit sat waiting. The woman was Asian, impeccably dressed, with the kind of polished appearance that screamed money and power. Ms. Thompson, the woman said, standing, my name is Sarah Kim. I represent certain business interests of Mr. Park. If Jay sent you— Mr. Park doesn't know I'm here, Sarah interrupted smoothly. May I sit? Kira remained standing, every instinct screaming danger. What do you want? I want to discuss your children's safety. Sarah opened a leather portfolio. You see, Mr. Park's activities have made him many enemies. The fact that he now has 3 sons makes those children targets. Are you threatening my boys? Quite the opposite. I'm trying to protect them. Sarah pulled out a series of photographs. These were taken yesterday. Kira's heart stopped. The photos showed her boys playing in the small park near their apartment, completely unaware of the telephoto lens capturing their every move. Who took these? That's not important. What matters is that if we can find them, so can others. People who would use those children to hurt Mr. Park. Kira sank into a chair, legs suddenly weak. What do you want from me? There are 2 options, Sarah said calmly. You can accept Mr. Park's protection, move into a secure location, accept bodyguards for the children, allow him to ensure their safety through his resources. Or you disappear again. New identities, new city, new life. We can arrange everything, documents, jobs, housing. Mr. Park would never find you. The room felt like it was spinning. You're asking me to choose between letting Jay back into our lives or running away forever. I'm asking you to choose between your children's safety and your pride. My pride? Kira's voice rose. This isn't about pride. This is about not wanting my sons to grow up in a world where people take pictures of them as threats. Sarah's expression softened slightly. I understand your concerns, but the reality is that they're already in that world, whether you acknowledge it or not. The moment Mr. Park learned of their existence, they became part of his story. Then maybe he should have stayed away. Would you really want that? Would you want him to walk away from his own children? The question hit home because Kira had seen the wonder in Jay's eyes when he looked at the boys, the careful way he'd knelt to their level, the genuine smile when they'd opened their presents. I need time to think. You have 24 hours, Sarah said, standing. After that, the choice may be taken out of your hands. That evening, Kira sat in her living room watching the boys play with their new toys, her mind racing. Mrs. Chen had offered to take them for the night, sensing Kira's distress, but she'd declined. She needed them close. The knock at her door came at 9 p.m. after the boys were asleep. Jay stood in the hallway holding takeout bags and looking exhausted. I brought dinner, he said simply. I already ate. No, you didn't. You never eat when you're stressed. He pushed past her into the apartment. We need to talk. About what? About how your lawyer came to see me today. About how my children are apparently in danger just because they exist. Jay went very still. Sarah came to see you. Don't act like you didn't know. I didn't. His voice was deadly quiet. What did she say? Kira told him about the meeting, about the photographs, about the ultimatum. With each word, Jay's expression grew darker. She had no right, he said finally. No right to approach you, to threaten you. So you're saying my boys aren't in danger? Jay was quiet for a long moment. I'm saying that Sarah overstepped, but... He ran a hand through his hair. She's not wrong about the risks. Jesus, Jay. Kira sank onto her couch. What have you done? What kind of life are you living that just knowing you exist puts children at risk? The same life I was living 5 years ago, he said quietly. The same life you left me because of. And you haven't changed at all? I've tried to. The admission seemed to cost him. After you left, I tried to find ways out, legitimate businesses, legal investments. But some things, some obligations can't be walked away from. Your family, my father's legacy, the people who depend on me. He sat across from her. But I swear to you, Kira, I would never let anything happen to them. To you. How can you promise that? You can't control everything. No, but I can control enough. He leaned forward. Let me protect you, all of you. By what? Moving us into some fortress, surrounding my boys with armed guards? If that's what it takes. That's not a life, Jay. That's a prison. It's better than being dead. The blunt words hung between them. Kira thought about the photos, about strangers watching her children, about the careful way Jay had checked the exits when he'd entered the ER. There has to be another way. There is. Jay's voice was careful. I could walk away, disappear from their lives completely. Sarah was right about that option. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. What matters is keeping them safe. Kira studied his face, seeing the pain he was trying to hide. You want to know them. I want to know everything, he said quietly. Their favorite foods, their fears, their dreams. I want to teach them Korean, tell them about their grandfather, show them where they come from. I want to be their father, Kira, but not if it puts them in danger. And if I say no, if I take Sarah's offer and disappear, then I'll let you go. His voice was barely a whisper. Again. The simple word carried 5 years of pain, and Kira felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. She thought about the boys' excitement when they'd met their father, about the way they'd immediately gravitated toward him, about the questions they'd been asking ever since. I need guarantees, and she said finally, anything. No business around them, ever. No meetings, no phone calls, no associates. Done. No weapons in their presence. Jay hesitated, then nodded. Agreed. And if I ever feel they're in danger, real danger, we're gone. No arguments, no negotiations. Understood. Kira took a shaky breath. Okay. Okay. You can see them. Supervised visits, public places, we'll figure it out as we go. The relief on Jay's face was so profound that Kira had to look away. When she looked back, his eyes were suspiciously bright. Thank you, he said simply. Don't thank me yet. This is going to be complicated. I know. And Jay? She met his eyes. If you hurt them, if you disappoint them or break their hearts, I will make you disappear myself. Are we clear? For the first time since he'd walked back into her life, Jay smiled. Crystal clear. As he left that night, Kira stood at her window watching him drive away. She'd just made a decision that would change everything, and she could only hope she wouldn't live to regret it. In the distance, she thought she saw a car following his, but when she looked again, the street was empty. 2 weeks into their new arrangement, Kira was beginning to think it might actually work. Jay had been nothing but respectful, showing up for scheduled visits with the boys, taking them to parks and museums, never once bringing his business into their world. The boys adored him. She watched from a bench as Jay taught them to throw a football in Bayfront Park, his patient voice carrying across the grass as he corrected their form. Ethan had inherited his father's natural athleticism, while Mason and Lucas were more interested in the science of the spiral than the actual throwing. He's good with them, Mrs. Chen observed, settling beside her with 2 cups of coffee. Too good, Kira muttered, then immediately felt guilty. Wasn't this what she'd wanted? For her sons to have a father? You're afraid, Mrs. Chen said gently. Terrified, Kira admitted. They're getting attached to him. What happens when this all falls apart? What makes you think it will? Before Kira could answer, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello? Ms. Thompson? This is Detective Rivera, Miami PD. I need to speak with you about Jae-hyun Park. Kira's blood turned cold. I'm sorry, who? Please don't play games, ma'am. We know about your relationship with Mr. Park and we know about the children. We need to talk. Across the park, Jay was lifting Lucas onto his shoulders while the other boys laughed. They looked like any normal family enjoying a Sunday afternoon. I don't know what you're talking about, Kira said. Ms. Thompson, 3 days ago, a rival organization made a move against Mr. Park's interests. 2 men are dead. We have reason to believe your children may be targets for retaliation. The phone nearly slipped from Kira's numb fingers. What? We need you to come in, today, and bring the children. I need to think about this. Ma'am, thinking time is over. We can protect you, but only if you cooperate. The line went dead. Kira stared at her phone, mind racing. What's wrong? Mrs. Chen asked, alarmed by Kira's expression. I have to go. Kira stood on shaky legs. Can you take the boys home? Kira, what's happening? But Kira was already walking toward Jay, her heart hammering. When she reached him, she managed a smile for the boys. Hey guys, Grandma Chen is going to take you for ice cream. Daddy and I need to talk about grown-up stuff. Boring, Lucas declared. But he hugged her legs before running toward Mrs. Chen. When they were alone, Jay's expression immediately shifted. What's wrong? The police called. They said there was some kind of incident, that the boys might be targets. Jay went very still. When? 3 days ago. 2 people are dead, Jay. Dead. Kira. You promised me, she said, her voice rising. You promised they'd be safe. They are safe. I would never... How can you say that? The police think they're targets. Jay grabbed her arm gently but firmly. Listen to me. Yes, there was an incident, a business dispute that got out of hand, but I handled it. The threat has been neutralized. People are dead. People who were trying to hurt my family, Jay said quietly. People who made the mistake of thinking they could use my children against me. The words hit Kira like a physical blow. Your children? They're not weapons in your war, Jay. I know that, but my enemies don't. His grip tightened slightly. This is exactly why I wanted you to accept protection, why I wanted to move you somewhere secure. So you knew this was going to happen. I knew it was possible. I've been taking precaution. What kind of precautions? Jay hesitated, and Kira's heart sank. There are people watching you, watching them, making sure they're safe. You've been having us followed? Protected. There's a difference. Not to me. Kira jerked away from him. This is exactly what I was afraid of. This is why I left you in the first place. And look how well that worked out, Jay snapped, his careful control finally cracking. You've been living in a fantasy, Kira, thinking you could keep them safe by pretending I don't exist. But I do exist, and so do my enemies, and your denial doesn't make them any less dangerous. So what are you saying, that this is my fault? I'm saying that running away didn't protect them. It just meant they were unprotected. The truth of his words hit her like a slap. For 5 years she'd told herself she was keeping her boys safe by staying away from Jay's world, but his world had found them anyway. The detective wants me to bring them in, she said quietly. Absolutely not. Jay, no. You don't understand how this works. The police can't protect them. They don't have the resources, the reach, or the commitment. All they'll do is make them bigger targets. And you can protect them? I already am. His voice was deadly serious. The men who threatened them are gone, Kira. They will never threaten anyone again. The implication hung between them. Kira thought about the news reports she'd seen over the years, about bodies found in the bay, about gang wars that erupted and disappeared overnight. You killed them. I protected my family. Those are the same thing to you, aren't they? Jay was quiet for a long moment. Yes, he said finally. They are. Kira felt something break inside her chest. I can't do this. I can't expose them to this. You can't run from it either, not anymore. Watch me. She turned to walk away, but Jay caught her hand. Kira, please, don't take them away from me again. I have to, can't you see that? This is exactly what I was afraid of, the violence, the danger, the impossible choices. I won't let them grow up in this world. Then what world will they grow up in? Jay asked quietly. One where their father is a stranger? Where they have to wonder why he abandoned them? Better than one where they have to wonder if he's coming home alive each night. Jay's face went white. Is that what you used to do? Wonder if I was coming home? Every single night, she whispered. Every phone call, every late meeting, every time you left the house. I lived in constant fear, Jay. I can't do that again, and I won't put them through it. I would die before I let anything happen to them. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. The words hung between them like a death sentence. In the distance, Kira could see Mrs. Chen loading the boys into her car, their laughter carrying across the park. I'm taking them away, she said finally, tonight. Kira, don't follow us, don't look for us, let us disappear. I can't do that. You have to. She met his eyes, seeing her own pain reflected there. If you love them, if you love me, you'll let us go. I do love you, he said quietly. I never stopped loving you. The admission nearly broke her resolve. Then prove it. Let us have a normal life. Jay stared at her for a long moment, and she could see the war playing out behind his eyes. Finally, he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. As Kira walked away, she didn't look back. She couldn't bear to see the devastation on his face, couldn't risk changing her mind. But as she reached Mrs. Chen's car, she heard him call out one last time, I'm sorry, Kira, for all of it. I'm so damn sorry. She didn't turn around, but tears streamed down her face as she got into the car. The boys chatted excitedly about their day with their father, completely unaware that it might be their last. That night, as she packed their few belongings, Kira tried not to think about the look in Jay's eyes when she'd walked away. She tried not to remember the way he'd smiled when the boys had laughed, or how natural he'd looked with Lucas on his shoulders. She was doing the right thing. She had to be. But as she tucked her sleeping sons into bed for what might be their last night in Miami, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was making the biggest mistake of her life. At 3 a.m., Kira was loading the last of their belongings into her car when she heard the footsteps behind her. Going somewhere. She spun around to find 3 men emerging from the shadows of her apartment complex. They were young, Hispanic, with the kind of casual menace that made her blood run cold. I don't want any trouble, she said, moving closer to her car door. Too bad, the leader said with a cold smile. See, we heard Jay Park's got some kids now. Kids he cares about real much. Kira's heart hammered against her ribs. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. Where are they? Asleep, she lied. grateful she'd sent them to Mrs. Chen's for the night. "Wake them up. We're going for a ride." "No." The word came out stronger than she felt. The man pulled out a gun, keeping it low but visible. That wasn't a request. Kira's mind raced. Her phone was in her purse in the car. The boys were safe at Mrs. Chen's, but these men didn't know that. If she could just... "Kira!" Jay's voice cut through the night like a blade. He emerged from behind another car, moving with deadly purpose. Behind him came two other men, both armed. "Let her go," Jay said quietly. "This is between us." "Actually, it's between you and our boss," the leader replied. "But since you killed his brother, we figured we'd return the favor. Your boss's brother tried to hurt my family. He got what he deserved. And now, you're going to get what you deserve." Everything happened at once. The gunman swung his weapon toward Jay. Kira screamed, and suddenly the parking lot erupted in chaos. Jay dove behind a car as his men returned fire. Kira dropped to the ground, covering her head as bullets shattered windows and ricocheted off concrete. When the shooting stopped, two of the attackers were down. The leader was wounded but still moving, dragging himself toward his dropped gun. Jay appeared beside Kira, checking her for injuries. "Are you hurt?" "No, How did you know?" "I've been watching. I told you I'd protect you." He helped her to her feet, then walked toward the wounded gunman. "Please," the man gasped. "I was just following orders." "So am I," Jay said quietly, and pulled the trigger. Kira flinched at the sound, bile rising in her throat. When she opened her eyes, Jay was walking back toward her, his expression calm as if he'd just taken out the trash. "We need to go," he said. "Police will be here soon." "Jay, you killed him. He was going to kill you, kill our children." Jay's voice was matter-of-fact. "I don't feel bad about that." "How can you be so calm?" "Because this is my world, Kira. This is what I do to protect the people I love." Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Jay's men were already cleaning up, moving with practiced efficiency. "Where are the boys?" Jay asked. "Mrs. Chen's, they're safe." "Good, get in the car." "What?" "Get in the car. We're leaving. I'm not going anywhere with you." Jay turned to face her fully, and she saw something in his eyes that made her step back. "3 men just tried to kidnap you to get to me. Do you really think this is over? Do you think their boss is just going to give up? You said you handled the threat. I handled one threat. There are always more." He gestured to the carnage around them. "This is what happens when people think they can hurt my family. This is the world you're trying to run from, but it will follow you wherever you go." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you have 2 choices. You can keep running, keep looking over your shoulder, keep wondering when the next threat will find you, or you can let me protect you properly. By becoming prisoners in your world. By becoming my family, officially." The words hit her like a physical blow. "What?" "Marry me, Kira. Are you insane?" "I'm practical. As my wife, you and the boys would be under the full protection of my organization. No one would dare touch you. That's not a reason to get married. It's not the only reason." Jay stepped closer, his voice dropping. "I love you. I've loved you for 5 years, even when I hated you for leaving. I love those boys like they're pieces of my own soul, and whether you admit it or not, you still love me too. Love isn't enough." "No, but it's a start." The sirens were getting closer. "Decide, Kira, right now. Come with me, marry me. Let me protect you properly. Or keep running and hope you're faster than the next group of men who want to hurt you." Kira looked around the parking lot, at the blood and broken glass, at the evidence of the violence that would always follow Jay wherever he went. Then she thought about her boys, sleeping peacefully at Mrs. Chen's, completely unaware that their world had just exploded again. "If I say yes," she said quietly, "if I agree to this insanity, I want guarantees. Anything. The boys come first, always, before your business, before your family, before everything. Done. No violence around them, ever. I can't promise they'll never know what I do, but I can promise they'll never see it. And if I ever want out, if I ever decide this isn't working, you let us go. No arguments, no threats, no hunting us down." Jay was quiet for a long moment. "I can't promise that," he said finally. "I can't promise I'd be strong enough to let you go again." The honest answer was somehow more reassuring than any lie would have been. "Okay," she said quietly. "Okay." Yes. God help me. Yes. Jay's relief was so profound that his knees nearly buckled. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest as police cars screamed into the parking lot. "I won't let you regret this," he whispered into her hair. "I already regret it," she whispered back, "but I'm tired of running." As Jay's men handled the police with what was clearly practiced efficiency, Kira realized she'd just made a deal with the devil. But as she thought about her boys, about the men who'd been willing to hurt children to make a point, she knew she'd made the only choice she could. She just hoped they'd all survive it. Later, as they drove through the pre-dawn streets of Miami toward Mrs. Chen's house, Jay reached over and took her hand. On Christmas, the Korean Mafia boss finds his ex-wife with 3 children identical to him, he said quietly, and despairs. What? That's how this story started, isn't it? With despair. With the realization of everything I'd lost, everything I'd missed. Kira squeezed his hand. And how does it end? With hope, Jay said simply. With a second chance I don't deserve but will fight like hell to keep. As they pulled into Mrs. Chen's driveway, Kira could see 3 small faces pressed against the window, having been awakened by the sound of the car. When they saw their parents together, their faces lit up with joy. "Daddy!" Lucas called out, running toward the car in his pajamas. Jay caught him up in his arms, spinning him around as Mason and Ethan joined them. For a moment, they looked like any normal family reuniting after a difficult night. But as Kira watched Jay hold their sons, she could see the subtle way he positioned himself between them and the street, the careful way his eyes scanned for threats, even as he smiled and laughed with the boys. This was her life now, love and danger, protection and violence, all wrapped up in one impossible package. She just hoped love would be enough to see them through. Years later, Kira stood in the kitchen of their Coral Gables mansion, watching through the window as Jay taught their sons, now tall, confident teenagers, how to change the oil in his car. The boys had inherited their father's mechanical aptitude, along with his sharp features, though they'd gotten their mother's compassion and moral compass. The house was a fortress, disguised as a family home, with security systems that would make the Pentagon jealous and guards who doubled as groundskeepers. But inside these walls, they'd managed to build something beautiful, a real family, complicated and imperfect, but undeniably theirs. "Mom, Dad's speaking Korean again," Ethan called out, now 15, and the spitting image of his father. "Tell him dinner's in 10 minutes, she called back, smiling as she heard Jay switch to English to explain the finer points of engine maintenance. The boys knew what their father did for a living. It was impossible to hide completely as they got older, but they also knew the man who helped with homework, who attended every school play and soccer game, who tucked them in with Korean lullabies when they were sick. Jay had kept his promises. The violence stayed outside their home, and their children had grown up knowing they were loved and protected, even if they didn't always understand the cost of that protection. "Kira." Jay appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a towel. At 42, he was still devastatingly handsome, though there were lines around his eyes now, some from laughter, some from the weight of keeping his family safe in an increasingly dangerous world. "The boys are getting good at this," she said, nodding toward the window. "They're getting good at a lot of things." Pride colored his voice. "Ethan's been accepted to MIT, full scholarship. And Mason wants to be a doctor, and Lucas is determined to be a lawyer." Kira shook her head in amazement. "Think they'll stay out of the family business?" "I'm counting on it." Jay wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "That was always the plan, wasn't it? Give them choices I never had." "No regrets? About them? Never." He turned her in his arms. "About us? Only that it took so long to get here. We got here eventually." "We did." He kissed her softly. The same kiss that had started this whole complicated love story. "I love you, Mrs. Park." "I love you too," she said, meaning it completely, "even when you're covered in motor oil." "Especially then," Jay grinned, and for a moment he looked exactly like the young man she'd fallen in love with all those years ago. Outside, their sons laughed at something one of them had said, their voices carrying through the evening air. They were safe, they were loved, and they were theirs. It hadn't been the life Kira had planned, but it was the life they'd built together. One choice, one compromise, one fierce protection at a time. And despite everything, despite the danger and the complexity, and the impossible balancing act of loving a man who lived in the shadows, she wouldn't change a single moment of it. This was their story, messy, complicated, and absolutely perfect in its imperfection,